Keynote, Starting with Children's Thinking, presented by Dr. Douglas H. Clements and Dr. Julie Sarama.
Hi, hello again, everyone. I'm Megan Vinn, and I'm so happy to be here moderating this session. I'd really like to thank Dr. Dixon, Matt Kapowitz, and Dr. Cantrell for getting us started today. I can't say enough how excited we are to have you here. We can't wait to hear from you, learn from you. I've already started seeing folks post in the chat, and we're excited to have you. Again, if you have any issues, please use that People tab to search for a guru, and we'll make sure that we can get you some help. But now that we've had our opening welcomes and orientation, I'm pleased to be the moderator for this session, starting with Children's Thinking, that Drs. Doug Clements and Julie Sarama will deliver. It will be followed by a live Q&A session, so please feel free to type in the Q&A box of Hublot, or if you type things in chat, I'll be responding, but I will be looking for those questions. So thanks so much, and I'm going to turn it over to Drs. Doug Clements and Julie Sarama.
Hello, I'm Julie Sarama. I'm a white female with short blonde platinum hair. I'm wearing a navy blue floral shirt in honor of feeling like a little festive because STEMIEFest is starting today. I'm a distinguished university professor at the University of Denver, and therefore in the spirit of healing, I acknowledge and honor the Cheyenne and Arapaho tribes and all of the original indigenous peoples of the land upon which the University of Denver stands. My pronouns are she, hers, her, and hers, and I am a researcher of young children's development and mathematical topics and a distinguished professor at the University of Denver.
And hi, everybody. My name is Doug Clements. I'm lucky enough to be married to Julie. I'm a researcher, curriculum developer, and a distinguished university professor at the same University of Denver. I'm a white male with hair that I like to call dirty blonde my whole life, and my wife says it's obviously
kind of
brown.
Yeah.
I use the pronouns he, him, and his. So what we're going to talk today about today, as Megan said, is children's thinking in STEM.
Yeah, and starting with children's thinking.
There's surprising things about children's thinking in STEM, and we hope we can communicate some of those things. In fact, our main area of interest, we're interested in all STEM, but our main area has been mathematics. And I want to show you a research video that shows that mathematics, the mathematics starts early. I'll be quick about it. They have the baby look right at the middle. That's why that's showing. And then they're showing the baby dots, the change in size and arrangement and everything else. And what they're interested in is, does the baby prefer one side or the other? They're both changing in every way except only the one on the left is changing in number. Look at the baby. The baby's looking way more of the time at the left, even though he checked out both sides of them, of the display. And he'll once again look, see that quick look to the right and then back to the left. And he really likes the change in number. In fact, he loves the change in number. And for goodness sake, it's easy for me to think he's kind of excited about mathematics.
Well, and that's the thing is, do we know what he's actually thinking about math? No, but we know by watching very carefully that he's sensitive to number. He's not giving us a right answer. He's not verbalizing anything, but we have signs and signals. And so what we're going to talk about today is more and more, let's really pay attention to what children are doing and saying or communicating in any way we can see to help figure out what are they thinking about in math. So this first video we're going to look at is just a TikTok video, and it's entitled Quantum Physics Next. So it's from a dad, clearly has high ambitions for his child.
Which is great.
Which is absolutely wonderful. I think that with our lens, we have a slightly different idea of what she's doing. So I'd like to hear from our friends in the audience about what they think.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Oh. Try again. How many sweet potatoes do we say?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Very good. Now, how many do we have if I take away one sweet potato? Now, how many do we have?
Okay, so starting right there, and it gets a little tricky because we do have to, even though it's a TikTok video and it's so short, we do have to stop. When he looks at it, he says, "Okay." He asked her to count, and she made some mistakes, and he asked her, "Okay, be careful," and she did it again. And we take all of that information and say, "Okay, what is she good at? What is she thinking?" First of all, Doug, she knows her number words.
She knows her number words in order.
In order. And that is something. She knows the verbal sequence of number words. Secondly, she knows she should be pointing at the objects.
Right.
But
right. She didn't particularly think it's real important to keep exact one-on-one. Only when he gave this critical kind of thing. And then did you notice when she did it, she didn't look down at the objects, understanding what to do. She was watching him for positive or negative feedback.
Right. Am I doing it right kind of thing?
Like he would know, but she wasn't sure.
Right. So from our perspective right now, we would say that this child is a corresponder. In other words, she is getting to be a corresponder. She's working on correspondence.
She's working on.
She understands verbal counting, and now she's moving into being able to keep one-to-one correspondence. We're probably not very convinced that she actually knows that last number word tells how many.
Yeah, so it's not that last object is 5. Right. It's that the number on the plate is 5, and she may or may not understand.
She may or may not that. But he's going to move forward and do lots of addition. And every time he does, he says, "Go ahead."
Subtraction. I think he actually does. Here we go.
How many do we have if I take away 1 sweet potato? Now how many do we have?
1, 2, 3, 4.
Very good. Now, what happens if I take away 2 more sweet potatoes? Now how many do we have?
1, 2.
2 sweet potatoes. Can you show me 6 fingers?
That's 5.
That's 5 plus 1 more.
Okay. So
there's a lot there on subtraction and then trying.
What is she doing subtraction?
I don't know. What do you think?
I'm thinking the dad's doing the subtraction, right? So he takes it away and then he just asks her to count. So she's being asked to count over and over again a smaller set. And again, we don't know if she understands that last number word tells how many. So what I think what we're trying to talk about though is that if you have a lens that helps you understand kids' thinking, then you're able to meet them where they are and actually help her. So as a parent actually trying to help her where she is and take this perspective, and we call it a learning trajectories approach, but trying to really push her along a trajectory, we would say she needs lots of experience corresponding and counting.
And then counting meaningfully.
Right.
With tasks where it makes a difference that you know that's the number on the plate.
Exactly. And small numbers. We want to stick with those small quantities. If you notice at the very end when he said she had 2 left, she seemed much more confident.
And she liked the 2.
Yeah. So we would stick with that.
But there's no way that she had it in her working memory that 4 take away 2 is 2. He just asked her how many left, and she looked down and told him.
Exactly.
But that's not the same thing as understanding the operation of subtraction.
And rather than think, did she get it right or not, which is the focus of this, did she say the right answer? We really want to look at where kids are thinking and help build them up from where they're thinking. Let's take another example in another area of STEM.
Okay. Before we do, though, I did insert this slide on you this morning.
Nice.
Because
insertion.
If you want to learn a little more about mathematics and learning trajectories, which include the levels of thinking of kids and also how to promote those levels of thinking for kids at different places in it, please go to learningtrajectories.org. But on to what you were saying, Julie.
Right. So now we're going to look at some other areas of STEM minus the math, although there's a little math in there. And we always see math and everything. So let's start with this one video that was taken in a classroom that was very nice to
And what do you want the participants to be doing as they watch this?
Okay, so this is the little girl, correct?
Yeah.
Right. So there's 2 little girls in this video, and it always helps. There's lots of research on how to watch videos, and so I'm going to help set it up for you guys. pay attention to the little girl who's in the foreground, not the girl who's making the big long.
She's kind of in the front, but also on the right.
Right. And pay really close attention to what she does with the magnets and figure out, just like that, she doesn't say a word, but just like that baby video we watched, watch her facial expression, watch what she does,
Physical
her
actions.
physical actions and what she's and see if you can think about what she's thinking.
Oh,
nice, Doug.
Yeah.
All right, we can go there.
Yeah. Ready? These are just some different things that kids can do
Kids are capable.
scientifically. Here's the video.
Now you're breaking apart. Are you breaking apart your building, your tall tower? Uh-oh, I didn't mean to do that. Oh, he's right.
That's funny. Okay.
Let's stop there.
Yeah, let's stop there. And I'm going to be looking in the chat, and I'm just wondering if anyone has any ideas about what did you see when you're watching her for all the signs of her thinking. No verbal cues, no quote right answers. What's she thinking? Megan's dying to jump in as our moderator. And you're welcome to, Megan, at any time if nobody jumps in.
And I'm looking too in the chat. I did want to let you know that earlier you had someone who talked about sort of the verbal cues mattering, and maybe we could, when you were talking earlier too.
Yes.
And I'll give it a minute
in case anyone's typing in.
Yeah. Patricia says that she's exploring with all of her senses.
Oh my gosh!
And exploring orally is what Kim said too.
Yep.
Keep going, please. Other people, put in your ideas.
Yeah.
She certainly was using senses. She was not only using kind of actions, but she was hitting it against herself. She was feeling, she was hearing.
Okay, so she was interested. Her attention went briefly when the block tower went down, and she was probably thinking, how can I do that with my magnets? But I want to focus in on the one little part where she said she's attentive to the adult. She's trying to figure out why they're sticking together. You look at her, they're not behaving like normal sticks would. They kind of stick. And she looks at the adult for a second like,
and scientists would say magnetism is not sticking, but because she looks so carefully at them, her first idea is probably stickiness.
Right. And so what we know, if we're going to take, again, this sort of, we're going to figure out how things progress for children. Originally, we would have said, well, in their first initial progression is we're going to explore, and that's where we're getting into all the senses. But now if we're watching really carefully, that we know that one part of exploring is probably, putting it in her mouth and exploring the way she normally would with any object. But there's probably a level of explore, a progression within explore, in which she starts noticing
a phenomenon that was surprising to her.
Yeah, that was unique about the material she's using. And when you watch that little spark in her face that says,
can we see it again?
Whoa, this is interesting. That's when you say, okay, there is indeed a progression within exploring in which they start noticing these things. And we probably want to even, as scientists and as caregivers, want to look at that really carefully because we want to meet her exactly where she is. So now
because there's one thing to hit things together and just kind of hear what it resolves. But then when the things don't act like you expected and you notice it, that's a level up on their exploration, right? Do you want to see this again?
Just watch your face.
Yeah.
Watch your face. Bang, bang, bang.
Are you breaking apart your building, your tall tower? Uh-oh, I didn't mean to do that.
Here it comes.
There you go. Look.
Look at, what? There's nothing
There's
on
nothing
this.
on here.
I wonder why it sticks.
I wonder.
And then the explorations continue when the teacher tries to get her to do something else with the blocks like the other girl. If you want
And if you do see the little girl in the back, she made a big row of blocks. We're going to refer to that later.
And
Okay.
Second, Julie, I was
too. What, Megan?
oh, and I was thinking, she also tried where she put them together, and then she tried to put them to her head to see will they stick to my head.
Exactly.
So it was sort of a what's going on here, and I think how often it's so exciting to see, right? Because a whole part of what we do at STEMI is to say, how do we be intentional and build then on what she is doing?
Exactly.
Because she saw it. She tried something else, and then it's, for how do we then be intentional and support her in
so that's the next question for the group is what would you do if you were her caregiver, you were her teacher, you're in that classroom and you saw her doing it? What would be something that you could suggest that we do to take advantage of where she is along a progression, and we want to build her up?
Because
I like to hear people type in, so you can talk while they're typing.
No. That's okay. Let's give them a moment for sure.
And the video goes on, and the teacher there does indeed do something. So and we could play it, but I really think I'd
love to hear from people. All I was going to say, and I'll say this, and ignore me, you people who are typing, please, because we want to hear what you're doing. Is like Megan was saying, it's so important to watch carefully, because it'd be easy for someone who's not an educator to look at this kid and say, she's not doing anything. She doesn't understand magnets. She's hitting herself on the head. Maybe we should take them away.
Right.
But if you watch carefully and don't worry about that, everything has to be verbal. Well, you see exploration.
You see science.
She's doing science.
She's doing an hypothesis, right?
Exactly.
She's saying these stick here. Do they stick up here?
Yeah.
And so are they things that stick to each other and stick to other things? And I'm going to try it out and try and see if that works. And it doesn't. It just is a normal behavior.
And that doesn't mean she understands its magnets, right? At all. We're not trying to say that, but the fact is that understanding something about magnets, some science educators would argue magnets is hard to see. Exactly. We should do things that are more perceptual for kids. But the fact is that she's making hypotheses. She's acting as a baby scientist. Right. And that's the key there.
So
what do you got?
So some people say use physical guidance, and yes, if you wanted to reach in and hold her hands and have her do more with a little bit of gross motor, fine motor support to help her get there, that's something. Offer things to see which sticks, which is magnet and not.
Nice.
That's a really nice exploration. And let's see, we have curiosity is a biggie here. She is curious. We want to capitalize on that curiosity by giving her more things to explore. Anything you had wanted to add, Megan?
Yeah, well, I wanted to say too, I saw that, like you said, we had some folks who were saying provide some things that stick, but someone else said also providing opportunities for things that don't. So there's some both, but it's adding more materials for exploration intentionally that she can then still explore and be curious about.
Yeah, she could have like a little a bin or a tray of some things that will stick to a magnet and some things that won't, and she gets to try and see.
And
what
some of the magnets might be wise to have some of the magnets be more powerful,
right?
Because there is a physical difference, like I said before, between sticking where they adhere in contact and magnets, which will attract even though they're not touching each other. And I don't care if they understand that in magnetic terms, but it is a cool thing for kids to play with.
And somebody else had said to mirror her lead. Yes, that's a great way into the communication aspect of things, is to do it and talk about it a little more. What did you just notice? So that's wonderful. And that, again, is a learning trajectories approach. We figure out where she is on a development and a progression, and then we figure out what to do for her at that level to get her going on a trajectory. And that's where the name comes from. We're going to help her learn, along a trajectory. And now let's try another one.
Do you want to see what the teacher does? No.
We got good
Okay.
ideas.
Let's go.
And this is one of Doug's favorite videos. So these little guys are building bridges.
Go ahead, Julie. Talk a little bit.
So they're talking about beam bridges, and they're given some pictures of different beam bridges, and they choose one they want to make. This little couple of children in this small group situation.
So the pictures are down on the ground, just under the screen that we're showing, so you can't see it, but you'll see what the teacher's doing.
We're going to build some blocks, some bridges. Do you want to pick a bridge that you want to build? Which one do you want to do? Do you want to build this one? What do you want to do? This one? Can we find the pieces to this? Who's doing me?
Okay, so the first step is to look at the picture and pick the blocks you need, okay? So she goes right in there and picks the blocks he needs, and now he's going to get up and pick the blocks he needs as well. And that's the first thing that we see.
That's already going from a 2D representation of a 3D object to that 3D object.
We're already amazed at that point. We have, children that young that can look at a flat representation and pick up blocks that are going to work. They might not be the exact blocks, but we'll see if they're going to work. Let's see what he does.
You want to use that one? We can try. Let's try a different. Let's try red and yellow go. What do you want this one? Clement, yes or no? Do you want to use that one? Okay. Nora's going to use those two. Do you want to do another one? What do you want to do? You want to try that one? All right, both times. Tell me, are you ready to do this one? You want to use this one too?
I see myself in the camera this way.
And you sit, Can you sit with me? Ready? No, sit. Can you sit, please? Thank you. Nora, I'm the second one. Good job. Can you try to do this one? Can you build a bridge? Can you make it look like this? Let's do it together. Here. Can you stack? Stack. This one, can you put it next? Put it next to. You put it next to? It's next to. Good job. Can you put it on? That was really put that one on top. Do you want to put this on top? You did. Nora.
Okay. So
much happened now.
Exactly.
We would love you to put in the chat anything you observed or are thinking, right? Statements, questions, whatever.
Exactly.
And these are for the last video, but there were two things I wanted to highlight too that I think relate to this one as well. But we had a couple folks who said, one who was really talking about sort of celebrating successes and ensuring kids can be successful, right? And so I think there was some nuggets about sort of holding high expectations for all children, celebrating those successes and being intentional. And I think what else somebody mentioned earlier that I think goes to this video as well is thinking about child's interests and building on that, but also thinking about how we can use these STEM experiences or exploration to support a child's individual goals and outcomes on their IFSP or IEP. And so it seems like we saw that a bit in the first one as well. How could we build that in was really exciting to see.
Exactly. Because clearly, although he was working on sitting when he needed to be able to sit, so much more is happening, and he's capable of so much more. And we really want to build on that and have that be intentional and not just be serendipitous when he's in small group. So we have a couple things. Modeling. Yeah, modeling is taking place for sure. In especially you have literally a model, a 2D representation. He sees his partner and what he's building, but he did take it off on his own little Kevin slant on things. So
did anybody notice that what he did?
But he didn't do exactly what she did.
No,
right?
Because both his partner there and I'm assuming the picture puts an arch, right?
Over the two.
The arch block over the two.
Right.
He didn't, but he went on his own and got a block that would work.
Right.
So after he's here, she shows him the picture. She wants him to put this arch block on there. Let's watch again. There we go. A perfectly good bridge.
He's not just imitating.
No.
He on his own. Now remember, they've been talking about beam bridges. He's getting the sense that a beam bridge has the two supports, and even though he didn't want to start with those two supports, and has a cross beam with the space between.
Which is what defines the bridge.
And then he's happy to put the arch on top. And this video goes on for a bit, and in fact, the little girl makes some free form building, and she doesn't keep that beam structure. She doesn't have it where things can go through. And he keeps going, and he starts playing with the idea that the thing with the beam, it has to be something to cross on, but something has to go through between the support structures.
Yeah, let's look at a little more. Oh, I'm so sorry.
You can fast forward.
I'll fast forward up to
that.
Yeah.
He scrubs, keep going a bit.
There we go. When he builds
it goes farther along, I think.
Here, I want to see this again. He smiled when he got that on top.
He smiled.
You did.
He knew that's what he wanted to do.
Laura, did you put or did you put it?
Celebrate success there. Now watch what he does. Puts it right back. He's getting it.
That's not bad fine motor control, I'll tell you that. Look.
Do you want to do some colors?
Where did he place that block? You and I might have turned it on its end.
No.
He didn't, but where did he place it on there? In the middle of the arch below and in the middle of the block.
It shows
if you had put it like this, it would have fallen down.
Right. It shows a clear understanding of the physical properties of blocks and the fact that they need symmetry and balance to make everything work.
And because that's a scientific or an engineering principle as well, you know?
Exactly.
Very good. Very good. Let's keep going. Please comment.
But this is the good part.
You want that one? Can you put it through the bridge? Did it go through? It did. Helen. Good job, Nora. Did you knock the order?
Okay. So again, Doug, let's we had some great ideas. He knows something about balance.
Nice.
He celebrated success. But now we're going to just put on again that special lens that we've been talking about that really teases apart kids' developmental progressions so that we can build on them and help kids learn and then come to that last part of the learning trajectory about what would you do.
Yeah.
So this one we actually do have a little more data on and go ahead, talk about what we see.
So what we see through a mathematical lens, because the science and the engineering are clear too, and we're not privileging one over the other. That's the wonderful thing about really rich STEM experiences like block building. It's really all four of the subjects. Anyway, though, in block building, think back now for us for a moment. In the first science and technology and engineering video, we saw the girl hitting, right?
With the magnet.
And that's a common stage for very young children who can finally grasp blocks.
Right.
They bang them together.
Right.
They explore how they feel, how they sound when they put. Then that's a foundational level. Important, not yet really shape composition. They're not really trying.
You're not putting shapes together, and shape composition is what you're talking about for our progression.
For our progression in mathematics. The next thing was in the first video too. Do you remember she put it in a
row. So there was the girl in the background had put all those blocks in a row. And I don't know if you remember, but I said, oh, look, there were all those blocks in a row, sort of to point it out.
And she called it a road, which is a common thing kids will say about that.
And so kids, when they start building with blocks, they first see what are the physical properties. And again, there is probably way more to that than just explore. There's probably a progression within explore that we're still figuring out. Mm-hmm. But then they put them end to end and make a road.
And they put them end to end where the two 2D kind of squares on each side are exactly matched.
Exactly.
I mean, that's really important because it's the beginning of congruence. Same shape, same size.
And then what comes next?
And then after that, kids learn to stack. And we saw a little of this here, but these kids are actually past the stacking kind of stage. They first stack anything on top of anything, and sometimes they'll pick one that won't stack, like a pyramid or something like that, and then they try to put something on top, and it all falls down.
Right.
The next stage is stacking identical shapes. So then they have a preference for one block that's like, let's say, a rectangular prism, the typical unit block, right? Twice as long, wide as the rectangles. And they stack those on top of each other. And then comes making the arch.
Right.
We call it an arch. They're calling it a bridge. All the same thing. He is clearly at that stage. Right. He knows how to make that arch. He probably could spend more time at that stage doing more things. Yeah, what were you going to say?
No, and meeting him where he is and knowing where we want him to go is so important because we can support him better and say, okay, clearly this kid has a drive to stack.
Yeah.
And he's on the cusp of being able, or he is starting to being able, where he can do the arches and things like that. So let's take that and give him a lot of experience again to do it. And one great way, which this teacher does, which is a great part of this activity, is take a car and make it go through. It gives them a reason to want to do that arches, to give more than just move beyond stacking. So honestly, we think that this activity is probably really good and on target for this kid's level of development. But what other things maybe that you see that you can say, maybe if I have a different idea, we're happy to hear it. We're kind of almost at the end of our presentation, so we'll leave that for the very end. The spacing in the block center is important to allow children to fully explore.
Nice.
It is true. We want kids to be able to do things. We want them to have a purpose too, because it's having a purpose.
That's another thing the teacher might do is set up narrative situations where he wants to play with these trucks. And she says, how could we get these trucks over the river?
Exactly.
Or something
Exactly.
Like
and so having a goal from a teacher's perspective, I want this child to move into this next level of progression, understanding his development, and then changing the environment or asking him the right questions. Again, that's what we always talk about when what we call, you and I call, a learning trajectories approach. So we get this kid accelerating along a trajectory and accelerating his learning. We let him level up. So we're talking about children's thinking in STEM. We know the first step is noticing how children are thinking and that it's more interesting and helpful than just getting the right answers.
And that's especially true in mathematics, but it's true in science too. It often becomes a vocabulary lesson.
Yeah. We want to know how kids are thinking. And we know that kids' thinking follows a developmental progression, and observing helps us know where children are along that developmental
Our
progression.
learningtrajectories.org website has progressions for all major topics. STEMI is innovative in one way. We are the first people to try to develop those developmental progressions in different topics in science, technology, and engineering.
Right.
It's an exciting time.
And the progression gives us the lens to interpret different children's thinking. It changes the way we see children interact with activities and materials. And it actually helps us say, what are children doing well, rather than taking a deficit model and saying what they can't do.
Developmental progressions are always asset-based.
Exactly. Go on. And understanding where children are on the progression allows us to meet them where they are and move their development forward. And as we said, that's the notion behind learning trajectories. It propels them along a trajectory and hopefully helps them learn more towards their goal.
Part of the introduction, he mentioned the word trajectory. Kids' trajectories are so important. All this is let's understand those trajectories and use our observations of kids to enrich their environments and move them forward.
So that's all we have to say, but we're still looking for questions and comments from people and
on anything, people. They might be on the video. They could be on children's thinking in STEM. They might be on developmental progressions, whatever you like.
Yeah, and Doug and Julie, I'm keeping an eye too on the Q&A. I do want to say that the sessions will be available to view at a later time. We got that question, and I did answer it in the chat, but I wanted to say it again. I also think one of the things I was thinking about as I was watching the videos was the importance of that peer connection within the exploration as well. And I know we had specific videos, but I think there might be some things in thinking about how do we ensure that there's that peer, there's that peer mediated intervention piece as well. And I know we'll talk a bit more about that on Friday, but that for me was something that came out for me too. And Cynthia also talked about intentional teaching as quality teaching.
Yeah, Cynthia made a lot of good comments, but that was especially important there, Cynthia, because it is intentional, but that doesn't mean it's didactic, overly teacher telling. And it doesn't mean it has to be sitting in chairs. Right? Intentional means you understand your goals and kids' thinking, and you use every part of the day to take a playful approach.
I'm going to give folks a minute for the Q&A so that we can see them and I'll ask them. I also thought it was really important, as you all were talking to, related to the just how you could see. I loved what Julie and Doug, you both said about the importance of exploration as a, not just a thing, but that there's sort of developmental progressions that we might see within that. And I really appreciated thinking about it because you just see, like you talked about, banging blocks in the beginning. Sometimes we maybe just think that's something kids do without thinking that it's really critical or, like you said, Doug, foundational for later. And so I really appreciated that talk about giving kids time to explore with the right materials and environments is really important.
Remember that boy, he liked twirling those blocks.
Right.
There's so much that he was doing.
No, it was fun the other way.
That was exploratory.
I also think that sometimes we say explore and we just put stuff out and say kids are exploring and it's good.
Yes.
I think the difference is with watching children explore with a lens is in understanding that there is still a developmental progression within exploring is just key here, because it's going to help us provide just the right material or ask just the right question at the right time to help the child move forward. Because I do think there is a misunderstanding that explore, like foundations kind of thing. Oh, we're just going to put some stuff out and they're exploring, and that's what we're going to do for 3 years. And no.
Yeah, Vivian Paley was a kindergarten teacher who wrote a lot of books, superheroes, and you can't say no, something
Doesn't
like
matter.
that. I can't remember the title. Sorry. But she talked about how an entire kindergarten could go by, traditional kindergarten, and kids would explore in the blocks by building the same tower every day.
Right.
I mean, there are intentional, like Cynthia was saying, approaches. Kids will kind of repeat the things, superheroes
Exactly.
and
the teacher doesn't have to lead the activities. In fact, the activities are really more child-led when you do take a learning trajectories approach and are looking at development. You're watching the child and you're letting them lead, and so you're helping them, you're supporting them, but you're not
like the Reggio Emilia approach. You just bring in new materials and lay them out when you see they're on the cusp of being able to do something new.
Right. You can't say you can't play. That's the name of it.
You can't say. Thank you so much.
Well, and I wanted to interrupt both of you and say we did get a question. And I do want to say just really quick that Cynthia also mentioned in the chat that the teacher doesn't always have to lead the activities, which I think was clear in your presentation, as she was saying, and your passion shows. But I think we did get a question about your learningtrajectories.org. And Kim wanted to know if it includes babies on up and if it's parent friendly.
Babies on up.
It does. Parent friendly, I think we're working on right now. We're continually trying to enhance it to make it a little more parent friendly because it's so much information right now. But more to come. We're always working on it. And really what it is it's lots and lots of videos of kids thinking, including that little baby and something.
And how to develop the thinking.
And then activities that you can do to develop thinking. But like I said, we're continually making it richer through our work in STEMI. That's part of what we're doing within STEMI is really building out even more on the infants and toddlers and more parent support.
If you're a family or you're working with families, just don't forget to go to the resources tab because there's a lot of guidance there too.
Right.
Yeah, and I was going to say for family friendly with the learning trajectories piece, we also have a piece on the STEMI webpage that has sort of tip sheets for both for practitioners and for families, but really in thinking about how do you do some of these STEM activities in everyday routines and activities and build on, like you said, Julie, your child's interests, where they are, and really use that strengths-based approach at home and in your classroom or wherever you might be.
And Megan, I think you'd agree with me that it's 50% watch what they're interested in, do it. But the reason I actually thought of Vivian Paley was her book, Boys and Girls Superheroes in the Doll Center, where she said that they will be repetitive if you don't indeed introduce something. So introducing new materials or new ideas through books, through manipulatives, through discussions can also then get their interest going. So you want to do both. I think you want to watch what's naturally coming up and you want to put out some teasers and see what they grab hold of.
You probably don't want your child counting her slices of sweet potato day in and day out. But I will say that when our son was young and he was learning how to make a set, which comes after being able to count, he wasn't able to make a set of 4 really well. And so what I did is I took paper plates and I had a whole stack of these really small paper plates and I put them out from one door, from the front door to the back door all the way. And he had to put 4, I asked him to put 4 trucks in every single one. There were these little racer truck things, and to make a truck a truck path for Dad when he comes home, and you were teaching a class late, and he did it, and it was fun for him. It was like a stupid little activity, but he did it, and what he actually did was practice making a set of 4, probably 30, 40 times, and there's no way he couldn't do that from then on. It's just regular stuff I had around the house and fun to do, and stack up the things and put them back. And then I noticed that he would use the plates and make them in the islands and things like that. So it doesn't have to be special manipulatives. Paper plates are awesome for kids.
Yeah. Thank you both very much for this great presentation. I feel like there was a lot of great engagement and we learned a lot. And so I really appreciate that. I hope folks in the chat will share any final comments or thoughts, and we can come back to it and add. But I will say now it is time for our poster and exhibition session breakouts. And so we want you to check out some really informative content by people who are doing some incredible work related to inclusive STEM. And so you'll have about a 30-minute break. And I'll be back, or not a break, excuse me. You'll have 30 minutes to look at the exhibits and posters and come on back, and we'll be having another engaging practice focus session. And again, thank you so much, Doug and Julie. This was wonderful. And I hope you take some time to look in the chat because people really felt your passion come through the screen.
And great comments from everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah.